Hi guys, this is Sai Kumar Kurtivada. In this video, we will learn about authorization of our application. So in this module, we will target for how to authorize, and only authorized people can see all the data whatever they have inside the login. So for example, let me quickly jump into Visual Studio Code. And here, before going to the coding part, what we'll do is we will see what are the problems which we face without authorization for our particular application. For example, here we are using Angular tutorials where we are using a user management structure over here. So now the case is we have a login and I didn't logged in at all, but if I type dashboard, he is able to go inside the application and he is able to access all the details which are inside the application, and also they are able to see this Sai Kumar Kurtivada. That means what we want to do over here, we want to access this particular application only when the authorized person is logged in. For example, let me go into inspect, and here this is the unique part of our application, and based on this itself we will be getting the data. That means here you have an ID and UUID and the username, and this is the username which we are seeing. Let me clear everything, and now let me go into the dashboard again. Now you will not see that particular name also. That means he is not a valid user and you are able to access the links whatever you have in that particular application. That we should restrict. This type of module we will be calling it as authorization module, and in this authorization module what we'll do is we will write guards, that means authentication guards. Let me go here and create two authentication guards for us. For example, let me go into the new terminal. Here let me create a guard, ng G for generate and G for guard. You can type GUARD, that also possible. And now we are creating a guard, and we are creating this guard in Angular 16. That means we will be creating a guard which is default, and that guard is a functional guard, not a class guard. So now we are creating a guard with name called as auth or admin auth guard, and I don't want to create any spec files, so skip tests and enter. Now we are creating can activate guard. Let me select that, and now it created the admin auth guard. That means this guard will decide whether to access admin URLs or not based on the authentication. So here how we can authenticate? We can authenticate in a simple manner. If your storage contains an ID, and based on that ID, if you are having that ID, then that particular user is a valid user. So now let me go here and just go inside const. Let me get the user ID is equal to local storage dot get item of, I want to get this particular items, and the item key is local storage keys dot id. If it exists, give that ID, otherwise empty. Now what I want to do, I want to check this user ID. If of user ID exists, then return true. Else, that means if we don't have the user ID, or we can write in other way also, like if you are not having a user ID, return false. That means we should not give an access to go further. That's where we are returning false. For example, if you have the user ID, then we have to allow him. So in that case, it will be written true. Let me save this. Now we are passing this user ID to it, and then we are giving an access to go further or not. And if you want to utilize this, where we have to utilize this is related to admin login. So what I will do is I'll go into app routing, and this is our auth layout component, and this is my admin layout component. If I am in admin layout component, if I am restricting that admin layout component, all the remaining will not be accessed. So can activate of, it's an array, and we have to pass the admin auth guard. That is the guard which we wrote just now. And let me close this. When there is no valid user, then we have to return false. That is absolutely fine. At the same time, we have to push this fellow into our login page. For that sake, let me get the router, and instead of using a class guard, we are using a functional guard, and hence we don't have a constructor. So I'm injecting like this. I'm using this router, this dot router dot navigate. I want to navigate this guy to other place. That means login, and this is not a class. So let me remove this, and now let me use our login. save this, and this is my router class. So let me check what's the problem. Let me make this as injectable. So let me use equal to inject, because we have to inject a service, and if you want to inject a service inside a functional guard, then we will use inject method. So let me use inject method, and this router I can use and navigate to login. Let me save this, and I have already explained you about this functional guards in my previous videos. Please watch that for better understanding. I'll provide the link in the description as well. So let me save this. Now let me go back. Now the user has not logged in. You can see the local storage, it is empty. And if I try to access that, for example, I'm accessing the dashboard, immediately it is going to log in. For example, let me show you that. Let me comment this without a guard, and let me go here. Just try to use dashboard. It will go inside. It is going inside that particular module, and you don't have an ID. So let me go here and revert this, save this, and you are able to go to the login page. Until unless you log in, until unless you have a valid user, you cannot go into the admin layout component. For now, let me go and check the email ID that is a valid user. Let me copy this valid user and put it over here, and also let me go into our password. Let me copy this password and put it over here and log in. So now user logged in. For example, if you try to access any of this notes details, of course we can go to reset password, we can go to profile, everything will be working as expected. And for example, if this ID got removed or somehow this got collapsed, then what will happen? Let me remove this and just go to any of the URL. It got logged out. That means wherever you are going, it is getting logged out. If you want to write this particular can activate, you can write for all. But how I want to activate this? I want to activate the children. For that sake, instead of writing can activate, I'm making it as can activate child. It also works the same way. Instead of restricting the component, we are restricting all the routes which are the children's. So let me go here and let me give the username password again, sai@gmail.com. Let me copy this and go to application, put it here, and then get the password. This is my password. Let me put that here and log in. So now we are able to log in, and let me remove this. If you try to reload, it logged out. So that's how the can activate child will work. Can activate child will check this can activation for all the routes. That means notes, profile, reset password, dashboard, and the nested routes as well, like notes/details, notes/details/some ID. Every route will be checked whenever we are using can activate child. That is absolutely fine. Now what I'll do, I'll just go here and again just let me copy this and put it over here, and then let me get this sai@12345 and put it over here, login. So now we have logged in. That is absolutely fine. But here you have an ID, that is also fine. But we are checking the property, but whether that user exists or not, we are not checking. For example, the ID 1 exists in our DB and we are showing it. That is absolutely fine. Now ID 4 or 101 does not exist. Let me reload this. If you see here, there is nothing happening over here. That means this ID does not exist, even though we are able to access that dashboard. That is absolutely wrong. So in this case, what we will do is we will inject our HTTP service. We will know whether that user exists or not in the DB. And if the user exists in the DB, then we will give the access permission for dashboard, notes, and everything. So now what I'll do is, instead of using directly, I'll get the HTTP, that is inject of HTTP client. So now we are injecting the client because we are using a functional guard, and before navigating, I want to get that particular values. So you don't have a user ID, this is the direct one. But if you have the user ID, okay, if you have the user ID, then we have to check whether that particular user ID exists in our DB or not. For that sake, what I'll do is I will be using this HTTP, or else directly we can use a service that is nothing but user service. Already we have a service called as user service, and inside this user service we have many things like create user, get all users, get user by ID. this is one which we want. That means if you are getting a user by ID, then that user exists. Simple to say. So now I'll use this get user by ID. Let me go here, and here what I'll do is I'll create const, or just use something like const data, and I want to get this dot user service. Let me rename this as user service, use small, and I'll be using this user service dot get user by ID, and the ID is something which we want to pass, that is nothing but user ID, whatever we are getting from the local storage, and this is an observable. So now the problem comes in picture. If you are using an observable, this will behaves like a asynchronous call. That means it takes some time and it will get the data, and it will not wait, and it will go into the true state and the user can access it. If you are subscribing, I don't want to subscribe in this case. Now this is an observable. I want to await this observable. Actually speaking, if you want to await an observable, it is not in our hands. So what we can do is we have to convert this particular observable into promise. How we can do is by using a toPromise method, we can convert our observable into a promise. Now this is a promise. I can await this promise so that you can wait until that particular API gets the response. And if you are using an await, our function should be async. So now this is an async and this is an await. So let me save this. Now we will be getting the data. Let me write console.log of data and save this. Now go here. Let me put 101 and let me access the dashboard. If you go to the console, you are getting an error, uncaught error, and you are getting user/101 as 500. That means internal server error. We are getting internal server error. So we have to use this internal server error, or whenever we are getting a problem for this API, that means the user does not exist. So in that case, I can make use of try and catch. So already we know about try catch in JavaScript. So try catch, what it will do is it will try for this data, and then if something happens, it will come into the catch block. So here we can catch that block by using E, and now whenever there is a failure in that particular service, it will go into the catch block, and inside this we can use router.navigate. Again he has to navigate to login itself whenever there is an error, and we have to return false. So this should happen if the try is successfully passed, and if you have the data of that user, then return true. I don't want to navigate anywhere. And if you don't have data also, we have to navigate to the login. That's it. We are able to navigate to login, and in the last we don't want this particular true value. Let me remove this, save this, and now go back. Let me go here and just change the ID to 1, and now I moved into dashboard. You can see the dashboard is visible, and if you see the network call, there is a call happened over here which is nothing but with that particular ID, and you got the response from the backend. Now what I'll do is I'll change into 101 in this case manually, because some people who is using this application will be a techie person and they can use this 101. He can change the ID and he will try to reload. In that case, it should not happen. That means because the ID does not exist. So that's why we have logged out. And in this case, our ID is very simple. That is 101 or 102 such things. But actually speaking, in real scenarios, your ID will not be like 101, 102 like DB's index. It will always be like some alphanumeric combination. So it is not always used or not always exposed to the client. So in that way we can use, or else if you want to restrict this, we can also restrict this by using encryption decryption mechanisms in our front end and store the data in your local storage. Whenever you are storing the data, encrypt it. Whenever you want to get the data, you can decrypt it. If you really want to use local storage in that way, also possible. If possible, I'll try to make a video for encryption decryption of local storage values in my upcoming videos. So for now, we are not encrypting or we are not decrypting anything. So now what I'll do is I'll log in again. So already I have an ID of 1. I can just use this dashboard. Now I have logged inside the dashboard and everything is working as expected. So this is how we can authenticate the user and we can have access to that particular user only whenever he is a valid user. So that's how we can use this local storage and auth guards in our Angular application. And also in the upcoming video we will see how to create this dashboard module, how to call the APIs, and we will show some UI in the dashboard. Simple to say, we will show some set of statistics over the dashboard, and not much big module is a dashboard. It's very simple in our application. So that's it about your user management and authorization module in your user management. Hope you like my explanation. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.